What's up, everyone? I am Tim Oates on bass, and it's about time we got a little odd. Okay, this video is meant to be an introduction to odd time signatures. If you know about them, but you've never fully grasped them, or you kind of struggle to really be able to feel them and count them out and internalize them, this is the video for you. Now, I believe that the best way to learn odd time signatures is to actually learn songs that have utilized them really well. So let's dive right in. Now, we're going to start with what I consider the simplest of the odd time signatures. Honestly, I think most people would probably consider them not even odd time signatures, just non-4/4. They're basically the threes, 3/4, 6/8, and 12/8. Notice they're all multiples of 3. Now, I didn't include 9, and that's because 9 is a little bit of its own beast. We'll get to that later. The first one we're going to talk about in this group is 3/4. This is the waltz. This is traditionally what 3/4 is. It's that waltz feel. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the best example of this is actually Happy Birthday. That's right. Happy Birthday is technically in 3/4. But when you're sitting around the office and everyone's singing it out of key and being forced to and they hate it, it's kind of more free time the way people actually do it in real life. Let's talk about a different song which is much more singable and people enjoy, and that's Billy Joel's Piano Man. To me, the feeling of this song is exactly what 3/4 is about, specifically the piano piece. When you listen to the piano, that iconic dun 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 dun, like that is the waltz feel. It's exactly what 3/4 is meant to portray in the feeling. In modern rock songs, sometimes they'll be written in 3/4, but don't have that exact waltz feel. But definitely Piano Man does. So next, we're gonna go to 6/8. Now, 6/8 and 3/4, when you're going through the math exercise of time signatures, technically the same, but these are two time signatures that the feel really makes a difference. Remember that waltz feel, that's 3/4. If it doesn't have that waltz feel, but instead has more of like a swing feel, it's probably 6/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When you look at rock bands from the 60s, you'll actually get a ton of 6/8. Because rock in the 60s was borrowing quite a bit from blues. The Animals' House of the Rising Sun, definitely a 60s rock song, using elements of blues like the 6/8 feel. And a lot of Beatles songs actually have odd time signatures. Some of them actually get really weird, but a lot of early Beatles was in 6/8. I mean, a ton, especially some of the stuff that sounds more bluesy. My favorite of all the Beatles songs that are in 6/8 is probably Norwegian Wood. But I have to warn you, if you go and you actually dig into the forums, there's a lot of debate on if this is 6/8, 3/4, or 12/8. That's the 60s rock. Now, more modern rock, there's quite a few songs that utilize 6/8. My favorite is going to be from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Breaking the Girl. This is a great song where you can really hear the 6/8 and the swing and the bounce, especially in the bass line. I think this is actually a fantastic song to learn to help you internalize 6/8 because of the way it's written and because of the bounce and the bass. The last odd time signature in the grouping of threes is going to be 12/8. 12/8 is probably the least common of all three. Very, very similar to 6/8. And in fact, most songs in 12/8 can sometimes be confused with 6/8. But there are some songs that are just very clearly in 12. The one that comes to mind is by Led Zeppelin, Dazed and Confused. That iconic opening line with the bass that goes into the verse. That part is very, very clearly in 12. That is a song that is very clearly not in 3. It's very, very clearly not in 6. It does not have that blues swing. It doesn't have that same bounce to it. 12 is absolutely the appropriate time signature for Dazed and Confused. The next section is adding and removing a beat. So you're starting with 4/4 and you're gonna add something, either an eighth note or a quarter note, or you're gonna remove something, either an eighth note or a quarter note, something like that. So let's start with 5/4. adding one beat to a standard 4/4, adding one quarter note to 4/4. Now, if you were to look up 5/4, guarantee the first thing you would find is the Mission Impossible theme song. And it absolutely is in 5/4. It is technically the most common thing that people try to teach you so you can learn 5/4, but I actually don't think it is a great example of 5/4 if you're trying to internalize it. The way that it's written, it feels like 4, and that's what's actually great about it. And what's great about a lot of popular songs that utilize odd times is they oftentimes are able to write in such a way that it feels like it's in 4/4 and you don't even realize it's in an odd time signature. I'm going to point you to a little lesser known song. The band is well known. The band's Gorillaz, and they actually have a song called 5/4. It's definitely not their most popular song. It's recognizable if you're familiar with Gorillaz. The way that the chords are actually written out in that 5/4 notation very much feels like 5. It's kind of a 2 and then 3 pattern. Okay, so the other one where you might add is 9/8. Now 9/8, I think I mentioned earlier, is a little bit of a weird duck. For mainstream music, you're not going to find a lot in 9/8, but there are still songs that you will recognize that are in 9/8. Like The Sorcerer's Apprentice. That's right. Mickey Mouse and Fantasia. It's in 9/8. It's a little weird, but when you actually hear it and you count it out, you can definitely see how it's 9/8. And it's a little different because you don't have a beat against it. You don't have like a drum beat that's really providing the pulse of kind of driving the feeling of the eighth notes. You have to provide that on your own by clicking it out or clapping your hand. But when you do that, you can definitely feel the 9/8. Even though it's only adding an eighth note to 4/4, it's probably one of the trickier time signatures to internalize. Once you do, though, it's fantastic. I love 9/8. Adam Neely actually has a fantastic video specifically talking about 9/8, and I'll be honest, I got the Mickey thing from him. I got the Sorcerer's Apprentice thing from that video. So I'm going to include it so you can check it out. So now we've talked about adding notes to 4/4. Let's talk about taking beats away. So let's start with 7/8. Alice in Chains, Them Bones. This is a very quick song. It definitely has a rushed feeling, and it's a great example of counting to 7 and then quickly flipping back to the beginning. I mean, it almost feels like you were trying so hard to get through the riff that you just finished it too quickly and you were ahead of the beat. But it's not. It's exactly how it's meant to be. Now 7/4, this is going to be the one that if you know anything about odd time signatures, you knew this one was going to be on there, and it's Pink Floyd's Money. This is the definitive 7/4. It's the one everyone knows. They create such a groove in 7 that you really don't even notice until you go to 4. When you then go to 4, it almost feels like the 4 part's wrong. I mean, it's not. It sounds great. Money is definitely where you want to start to internalize 7/4. So with the really weird time signatures, they're usually reserved for specific things, but there are some bands that really, really specialize in odd time signatures. And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll tie together multiple time signatures for specific parts. There's plenty of examples. I'm picking 3 that I particularly love. The first one being the Deftones' Diamond Eyes. This is just a fantastic song for odd times across the board. A lot of people say that the verse is in 6/8, and then other people say that the verse is in 3/4. How is the chorus done? Is it in 11/8, or is it going back and forth between 6/8 and 5/8? Here's my take. I think the song is in 6/8, and in the chorus, it has moments of 5/8. Okay, the next one is Soundgarden, and I could have picked any song by Soundgarden. They have so many songs that are in odd time signatures. They use 7 a lot. A lot of their songs are in 7. We already talked about 7, so I decided to go with one that's really, really weird, which is Rusty Cage. Most of Rusty Cage is in 4, but when you listen to it, it actually sounds like it's in an odd time. You might disagree. Drop comments if you think I'm crazy and it feels like it's in 4, because to me it does not. It feels like it's in something else, which is the beauty of the riff. But when you get to the end of the song, like past the bridge and into the outro, that's when you get into the really weird things. The way that most people describe this section is 19/8. And here's the thing, when you start getting into these super crazy time signatures like 19/8, you would never count it to 19. You just never would. Musicians don't do that. So even if you're going to write it out 19/8 and you're going to say this is a measure of 19, the way that you would actually count it while you're playing it would be some sort of a subdivision based on the way that the notes are laid out. In terms of is it in 19 or is it in something else, I doubt that they considered it in 19. Maybe they loosely refer to it as that section, but if they were going to score it, they probably would have had the breakdown. So the last band and the last song I'm going to highlight for odd time signatures is Tool. So of course I had to have Tool on here because they are the kings of odd time signatures in modern rock. The song in particular that I'm picking is Lateralus. Now, Lateralus could probably have its own video. Actually, it has plenty of videos out on YouTube about the ties to the Fibonacci sequence and everything else. I mean, it's a masterful song when it comes to the way it was written and everything, but specifically the chorus is a measure of 9, a measure of 8, and a measure of 7. Now, notice I said a measure of 8. We haven't actually talked about 8 because all 8 is 4/4. There are actually plenty of interviews with different members of Tool that talk about this section, this chorus of Lateralus, where they say, no, it's a measure of 9, a measure of 8, a measure of 7. That's how it was written. In fact, the working title before they named it was 9/8/7. Okay, so there's 14 different examples of odd times. I know towards the end there, we started getting into like a really more complex stuff and tying a bunch of odd times together. You're not expected to be able to dive there. If you are truly a beginner and just starting to learn, what you need to do is you need to start with some of the early songs, learn those, really internalize them, and get to a point where you can feel the beat. I hope this video has been helpful for you. If so, please give it a like. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Drop some comments. Let me know what else you would like to see. You keep making beautiful music, and I will see you in the next video.